Story 1, Your Mum Belongs to Me Now. Snow fell sideways when Rebecca Harper wrestled her shopping bags into the boot of her car, the December wind rising from the Yorkshire coast like something alive. Oliver sat strapped in his booster seat, singing to himself as the car lights from the supermarket flickered behind them. That was when the Santa approached. At first, Becca thought he was part of the store's charity team, just another volunteer in a red suit with a bucket and a bell. But as he stepped closer, she noticed how soaked the fabric was, how the artificial beard clung to his chin in uneven clumps, and how his smile didn't fit his face. "Evening there, sweetheart," he said, planting one gloved hand on her car door. The wind howled between them. "You look like you could use a little Christmas cheer." Becca forced a polite smile. "We're good, thanks." She tried to shut the door, but the man leaned tighter against the frame. "I said," he whispered, leaning so close she caught the stench of old tobacco through the beard, "you could use some cheer." His hand slid toward her cheek. Becca jerked backward. "Don't touch me." But Santa only smiled wider. "You're a pretty little thing, aren't you? Maybe Oliver deserves a new daddy. I could be yours." He leaned down and pressed his lips against her cheek before she could react. Then, as she shoved him away and slammed herself into the driver's seat, he dipped his head low to her ear. "I'll be your new daddy," he whispered. "And your mum belongs to me now." Becca sped off so fast the tires squealed on icy concrete. She didn't sleep that night. Even after she double-locked the door, dragged a dresser in front of it, and checked every window latch twice, her skin wouldn't stop crawling. Oliver fell asleep easily, tucked into his blanket fort and blissfully unaware, but Becca lay on the sofa with a mug of cold tea and a baseball bat across her lap. The storm worsened at midnight. Wind hammered the windows, making the house shudder. Then came the knock. A slow, deliberate, 3-beat knock on the front door. Becca froze. "Mommy?" Oliver's small voice drifted down the stairs. "Stay upstairs," she hissed. "Don't move." Another knock, louder this time. Becca crept to the peephole, her breath shallow. Snow swirled violently on the porch, and standing in the center of it, illuminated by the flickering street lamp, was Santa. His suit hung in shredded strips. Red, but not the manufactured kind. Wet. Sticky. His beard was gone. His face, bare, pale, twisted in a hungry grin, looked directly into the peephole, as if he could see her staring back. He lifted a plastic supermarket keychain and jingled it between his fingertips. Her car keychain. Becca clamped a hand over her mouth. "Becca," he sang through the storm. "Let me in. We're family now." She backed away slowly, heart thundering. Then she heard something drop against the door. A soft thud. A box. Gift-wrapped. Becca didn't dare pick it up, but she didn't need to. A Polaroid slid under the crack of the door, its white border crusted with frost. She bent slowly, trembling, and picked up the photo. Her breath stopped. It was a picture of her and Oliver, taken from outside their living room window, clearly while they were asleep on the sofa earlier that evening. Behind them, a faint reflection in the glass showed a Santa figure. Watching. Becca stumbled backward and grabbed her phone. The police arrived 7 minutes later, but Santa was gone, leaving only his deep boot tracks that disappeared halfway down the street as if swallowed by the storm. Officers swept the area, but visibility was nearly zero. The sergeant took one look at the Polaroid and called for backup. "Whoever this bloke is, he's escalated," he muttered. "We're talking serious intent." Within the hour, the storm finally eased enough for a team to search the town square, and that was where they found him. Santa. Dangling. Hanging from the giant Christmas tree in the center of the square like a grotesque ornament, swaying gently in the cold night breeze. Not graphic, just eerily still. The wind creaked the branch he was suspended from. He had tied the rope himself. And stuffed inside his mouth, folded crudely into a wet crumple, was a note written in shaky black ink. "Tell Oliver I'll be watching from the North Pole." Becca didn't cry until Oliver woke up the next morning. "Mom," he whispered as she held him, refusing to let go. "Why are you hugging me like that?" She didn't answer. She couldn't. In the following days, detectives confirmed what she feared. The man had attacked a security guard behind the supermarket earlier that night. Not fatally, but badly enough to steal the guard's keys, one of which matched Becca's car's brand. He had followed her home, waited in the dark, watched through the windows. But there was something worse. Much worse. In his coat pocket, investigators found a stack of Polaroids taken over the past several weeks. All centered on Becca and Oliver. Shots of them entering their home. Leaving. Shopping. Playing in the snow. He'd been following them far longer than she realized. Becca moved houses within a month. She changed her number, her job, even her car. Oliver started sleeping in her room. For weeks, he'd wake in the middle of the night, whispering that he heard bells outside, tiny jingles, faint and impossible. Becca always reassured him it was just the wind, though she sometimes heard the same distant chime. Always around the same hour that Santa had knocked on her door. The therapist told her it was trauma. The detective told her the case was closed. But none of them lived with the lingering feeling that invisible eyes still lingered somewhere in the cold dark, watching. On the first anniversary of that night, a package arrived without a return address. Inside, one red glove. Cheap felt. The same kind Santa had worn. And a slip of paper that read, "Families reunite at Christmas." Becca locked all the doors again that night. And slept with the lights on. Story 2, Don't Forget Me. I first met Emily Ward on a rain-soaked Thursday evening, the kind of night where the streetlights bleed into the puddles and the whole town feels slightly out of focus. She lived 3 doors down in the apartment complex, thin, pale, with tangled auburn hair and eyes that seemed fixed on something just over my shoulder. The first time she spoke to me, she said, "If it happens again, please don't forget me." I laughed awkwardly, assuming she was joking. She didn't smile back. She never smiled. We talked in the dim hallway while the rain hammered the windows. She told me she'd been having episodes, strange lapses in memory, time slipping out of order, hours she couldn't account for. Sometimes she'd wake up in a stairwell, or in the laundry room, or once, standing outside my apartment door. I should have been creeped out. I wasn't. Something in her voice sounded more desperate than dangerous. Before she left, she grabbed my wrist with cold fingers. "If I disappear, look in my apartment. Promise?" I promised, only because it seemed like the fastest way to end the conversation. At 3:14 a.m., someone knocked on my door. Soft, deliberate. Not panicked, not random. Like someone making sure they were heard, but not by the whole world. I opened it to find no one. Just the hallway lights flickering, buzzing like angry insects. Then, from below, the stairwell. A single whispered phrase. "Don't forget me." I froze. It wasn't loud. It wasn't even clear. But it was Emily's voice. I followed the sound down 2 flights, but the stairwell was empty and bone cold. When I finally returned to my apartment, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Please remember me." An attached photo. It was a picture of my own front door. Taken seconds earlier. Emily didn't show up again for 3 days. On the 4th, the landlord taped a notice to her door. Eviction for non-payment. Unit 3C deemed abandoned. Abandoned. After 4 days. That bothered me. So did the fact that no one else in the building seemed to recall what she looked like. One neighbor swore Unit 3C hadn't been rented in months. Another insisted Emily was that tall blonde girl, which was completely wrong. It was as though people remembered a person, not her. Their memories were dissolving. But mine weren't. Not yet. I used the spare key she'd left in my mailbox months ago, a key I did not remember receiving, but it had my name on the envelope. Emily's apartment was silent, stale, and wrong. All the furniture had been shoved to the edges of the room. The center floor was covered with paper, hundreds of sheets, arranged in a spiral pattern. Every page held the same phrase, written dozens of times. "Don't forget me. Don't forget me. Don't forget me." Some were written in shaky pencil. Others in dried brown streaks I prayed were rust. But what terrified me most were the photos. Pinned to the walls, strung with red thread. Pictures of me. Entering my apartment. Checking my mailbox. Sleeping on my couch. The most recent photo had today's date. It was taken while I stood inside her apartment. Someone else was here. A soft creak behind me. The hallway light outside flickered. Long enough for me to see a silhouette through the frosted glass. Tall. Tilted head. As still as a mannequin. Then it whispered. "You remembered." The door handle began to turn. I panicked and dove into the bedroom, slamming the door behind me. The room was pitch black. Something brushed past my arm, cobweb soft, but warm. My phone lit up with a new message. "Thank you." A second one. "Now forget." Then the silhouette's shadow slid under the door. The room grew colder. My breath hung in the air. Something moved in the corner, slow and disjointed, like limbs bending the wrong way. Emily crawled into the faint glow of my phone's screen. Except it wasn't Emily anymore. Her eyes were gone, just hollow sockets filled with swirling black mist. Her jaw hung too low, trembling, as if words were trapped inside and trying to claw their way out. When she finally spoke, her voice was layered, hers, and something underneath. "I didn't want you to see this." I stumbled backward, but she reached out, fingertips brushing my cheek. "It keeps taking pieces of me. Memories first. Then faces. Then names." Her form flickered, her hair vanishing, reappearing, her limbs shortening, stretching. A person forgetting themselves in real time. "Please, don't let me become nothing." She lifted my phone and pressed it into my hand. The screen displayed a final message draft. "Remember me," she whispered. "Send it, or I fade." I didn't understand what sending it would do, or who it would go to, or what would happen to me if I refused. But her body was dissolving, bit by bit, details smearing like wet paint. So I pressed send. The message went to every contact in my phone. Then to numbers I didn't recognize. Then to people I hadn't spoken to in years. And Emily smiled. For the first time. A soft, grateful smile. As she evaporated like mist in a warm room. That night, half my contacts messaged back. "Who is Emily? Why did you send this? Is this some kind of joke?" But one reply chilled me. "Thanks for remembering me." From Emily's number. Followed by a photo. Not of her. Of me. Sleeping. Taken last night. Captioned. "Don't forget yourself." Story 3, The Man Who Follows. The first time I noticed the man, he was standing across the street from my bus stop, hands in his coat pockets, head cocked slightly as though listening to something only he could hear. It was January, the kind of cold where your breath comes out like smoke, but he didn't seem bothered by the weather. Or by the fact that he wasn't wearing shoes. Just bare, gray feet planted on the frozen concrete. I told myself he was homeless, mentally ill, maybe sleepwalking. Easy explanations are comforting. They're also wrong more often than not. Especially in my neighborhood. I kept glancing at him while pretending to scroll my phone. He never moved. Not an inch. Not even to blink. But each time I looked away, he was closer. At first by a foot. Then by several. Then, suddenly, he was standing on the edge of the road directly facing me. Still motionless. Still barefoot. Still staring. I didn't wait for the bus. I ran. Over the next 3 days, he appeared everywhere I went. At the grocery store entrance. Behind the school gym. Across the street from my apartment at 2:14 a.m. He didn't follow me like a person. Not step by step. Not physically. He simply appeared. And no matter where he stood, he was always exactly 40 steps away. I counted. Over and over. 40 steps. Never 39. Never 41. Like some boundary he couldn't cross. Yet, the more I studied him, the more I realized how wrong he looked. His arms were too long. His neck too stiff. His clothes, wrinkled and damp, never changed. But the worst detail was his face. Perfectly neutral. Perfectly still. Eyes open so wide they looked painted on. And I could swear the skin around his mouth was cracked, as if he'd been smiling far too long before freezing into a straight line. Sometimes, when the light hit just right, I could see the faint outline of teeth behind his lips. Not normal teeth, long ones. Thin and needle-like. But only for a moment. The fourth night, the scratching started. Slow, deliberate drags across my apartment door. Like someone tracing the outline of my name on the other side. I knew it was him. And I knew he couldn't come in, not unless I opened the door. That's how these things work. Or at least, that's what every urban legend says. I didn't open it. But around 3 a.m., I heard a new sound. Counting. One number spoken over and over in a voice that didn't sound fully human. 37, 37, 37. He was practicing. Rehearsing. Trying to get it right. Trying to learn the distance. On the fifth morning, I felt brave enough to leave for work. The hallway was empty. The stairwell quiet. Outside, the air was sharp and cold. For the first time since he appeared, he wasn't anywhere. I exhaled for what felt like the first time in days. Until I reached the end of the block. He stood at the corner. Not 40 steps away. 10. He was getting better. That afternoon, I asked around the building. Had anyone seen him? A tall man. Barefoot. Expressionless. Mrs. Albright from 2B looked at me strangely and said, "You shouldn't talk about him out loud." When I asked why, she pulled me into her apartment. Her windows were barricaded with furniture. Every surface was covered with salt lines. She said she used to see him too. Then she rolled up her sleeve and showed me 4 long, parallel scars up her arm. Like claws. When he reached 0 steps, she whispered, he marked me. And every day since, I've been forgetting. Forgetting what? She gave a hollow laugh. If I knew that, I wouldn't be afraid. Before I left, she grabbed my hand with surprising strength. He isn't following you. He's learning you. That night, he appeared in the parking lot. 20 steps away. He'd cut the distance in half. I walked backward slowly. He didn't move. But with every blink, with every glance, with every shift of my eyes, he was closer. 19. 18. 17. I realized then he didn't move when watched. Only when unseen. Which meant, when we blink, he moves. A horrifyingly simple rule. I didn't sleep at all that night. I couldn't. Sleep meant darkness. Darkness meant blinking without control. Blinking meant he could walk straight to my bed. On the 7th day, I came home to find my apartment door wide open. Inside, the lights were off. I didn't enter. But I could see footprints, wet, gray, human but not, leading from the doorway to my bedroom. And on the wall, written in something that wasn't ink. 0 steps. My phone buzzed. A notification. A photo. It was my own bedroom. Taken from inside the closet. The caption. I'm already here. I backed away slowly. Then a voice, right beside my ear, whispered, Don't blink. Mrs. Albright hasn't seen me in days. She probably won't see me again. Because I finally understand why he follows. Why he learns. Why he counts. He's not approaching me. I'm becoming him. Slowly. I haven't blinked in 3 days. My eyes burn. My smile hurts. My feet are bare. And when I stand outside someone's home now, the distance feels familiar. 40 steps. Always 40. Story 4, the last room in the snow house. The snow house motel sat alone on the roadside like a dying animal, half buried in drifts, its neon sign flickering the word now instead of snow house thanks to a blown bulb. I wasn't supposed to be driving that night. The weather report had warned of a blizzard historic in scale. But grief makes you reckless. I just wanted to get to my sister's cabin in Montana before the anniversary. Before the date I never talk about. Before the memories caught up. The storm caught me first. By the time I spotted the motel, my windshield was a sheet of white static and the engine was coughing out smoke. I pulled in because it was either that or die in a snowbank. Looking back, I should have chosen the snowbank. Inside, the lobby was warmer than expected, too warm, almost feverish. A little bell chimed as I entered, and an old man in a red beanie shuffled out from the back. He smiled too quickly, like he'd been waiting. "Bad night to travel," he said. "Lucky you made it. I pay for a room without small talk." He slid a tarnished key across the counter. "Room 14. The last room down the hall. Full house tonight?" I joked awkwardly. His smile faltered, then returned, tighter this time. "Just you." I didn't understand the wrongness of that until later, when I realized he handed me a key from a board completely full of other keys. No one else was staying there. No one living, anyway. Room 14 smelled faintly of mold and something metallic. The heater rattled like it had a bone stuck inside. I set my bag down and immediately sank onto the bed. The fatigue hit like a wave. So did the sound. Scratch. 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 From under the bed. I froze, every nerve turning to ice. I waited. The sound repeated. Slow, deliberate, back and forth scraping. Like someone dragging their fingernails along the floorboards directly beneath me. I knelt and lifted the bed skirt. Nothing. Just darkness. But the scratching continued, from deeper than the floor should go. I backed away, pulse hammering. Maybe rodents. Maybe pipes. Easy explanations. But then, as I turned off the light to try to sleep, a new sound rose from the floorboards. Breathing. Wet, shaky, too close. Breathing that seemed to respond to mine. When I held my breath, it held its breath. When I exhaled, it exhaled with me. Around 3 a.m., the storm howled so loudly it shook the window frame. I couldn't take the sounds anymore. I stepped outside my room just to breathe different air. The hallway stretched longer than I remembered. Much longer. Room after room, door after door, most unnumbered, some with their numbers carved off, as though by claws. When I turned back, room 14 wasn't behind me. Instead, the hallway kept going. And at the farthest point, barely visible in the dim orange emergency lights, stood a figure. A woman. Her head bent sharply to the side, hair covering her face. Bare feet. One hand dragging along the wall, nails cutting thin red lines in the peeling wallpaper. At first, I thought she was injured. Then she jerked her head up. Her eyes were wide and unnaturally reflective, like a deer caught in headlights, but there were no headlights. She smiled. I didn't go back to my room. I ran. But the hallway kept looping, door after door, endlessly repeating like a bad copy of itself. And each time I passed a door, the breathing under the floor followed me, growing louder beneath my feet. It stopped when I found a new door. Room 0. Not possible. Not on the layout. Not on the keyboard. but the handle was warm, almost pulsing. I opened it. Inside was a single mattress on the floor, a lantern, and a young woman sitting with her knees pressed to her chest. She looked up at me with a face full of terror and relief all at once. "You're real," she whispered. "Who are you?" She shook her head. "No names." "It remembers names." "What remembers?" She crawled closer, gripping my coat with ice-cold fingers. "You have to get out. Right now. Before it chooses you." "What chooses?" She clamped a hand over my mouth. The scratching had started again. Only now it was coming from the walls and the ceiling. Something crawling behind the plaster, moving toward us. "It feeds on the ones who check in alone," she whispered. "It lives under the floors. It climbs through the walls. It mimics the face of whoever died last. And it likes winter. Snow traps sound. Snow keeps us quiet." I swallowed hard. "How long have you been here?" She laughed. It wasn't a sane laugh. "I don't know anymore." A bulge appeared in the ceiling plaster, swelling outward as though something massive pressed from the other side. Then, crack! Plaster dust fell onto the mattress. The girl screamed silently, grabbing the lantern and shoving me backward. "Run!" I sprinted into the hallway, but it wasn't a hallway anymore. It was room 14. But wrong. The bed was overturned. The heater melted into the wall. The floorboards were replaced with something pulsing faintly, breathing. Breathing with me. Something was rising from it. Pushing upward. A figure shaping itself out of the living wood. A face surfaced first. Not its face. My face. Stretched wrong and smiling too wide. I didn't think, I just ran. The door slammed behind me with a force that knocked me onto the icy pavement outside the motel. Snow stung my eyes. Silence swallowed the world. The neon sign flickered. Now. 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 Room 14's curtains were still, like nothing inside had moved in years. I scrambled into my car, turned the engine, and prayed. Somehow, it started. I drove until sunrise.